The Giants look better with Tyrod Taylor than they do with Daniel Jones. Now, it's a small sample size. The competition they're playing has to be taken into account. The Saquon health of it all has to be taken into account. But what Tyrod Taylor doesn't do are the things that Daniel Jones does that cost you games. Daniel Jones can beat you far more ways than Tyrod Taylor can. But bad Daniel, how am I trying to say this? Daniel Jones has a higher ceiling but a much lower floor than Tyrod Taylor does. And when you're spiraling, when your season is spiraling as it was for the Giants, maybe sometimes what you need is a higher floor and let some other pieces of your team look better. And they have. The defense has been better. They've just been better the last couple of weeks.
Well, specifically and especially on defense. We can't give Tyrod Taylor that credit. So the Giants have allowed 21 points in their last 2 games. They were allowing 31 points a game in the 5 games that Daniel Jones started. Now, if they're going to play defense like this, maybe you're right. Maybe
how much of that was off turnovers? I'm curious to know, because I know I'm only saying that out loud because I know you can find it out pretty fast, whereas most human beings would take until tomorrow to get me that answer. But what I'm trying to figure out is if there is some causality there. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
It's one thing to say the defense has been better. Have they been on fewer short fields? Is there another reason why their defense has been better?
Yeah, so their opponent scored 34 points off of turnovers in Daniel Jones starts and only 7 in Tyrod Taylor's 2 starts. It's 100% true that they avoid turnovers better, they avoid sacks better, and they're a little bit more explosive. But really the reason why the Giants have been so much better the last 2 weeks is their defense has looked like it did last season. But at the same time, I will give you this. If you can play defense like that, what you want is a risk-averse quarterback. What you want is a quarterback that's going to be able to throw. Tyrod Taylor has as many throwaways in 2 games as Daniel Jones has in 5.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones takes way too many negative plays and turns it over too frequently. I'm with you there. But it's the Giants' defense. That's the reason why they won yesterday and played well the week before.
It's another one where it's not going to happen. Like we talked earlier about a change that could happen, might happen. They're not benching Deshaun Watson, and they're not benching Daniel Jones. This is not the time to do either of those things. But it is impossible not to notice that the Giants do look a little better. I was under the impression, at least last year, that was a spread-it-around offense. That was an offense that was predicated largely on Hurts using his legs, on a lot of that RPO stuff, and then spread it around. A little bit of Brown, a little bit of Smith, a little bit of the tight end, a little bit of throwing it to the backs. That is now an offense that runs through A.J. Brown, and he has really emerged. He's a better player than I realized. I knew he was big, and I knew he was good. I didn't realize he was this level of good. I feel like he has become one of the really elite. Like when we name right now the 5 best wide receivers in the sport, I think he has to be named.
Yeah, he's absolutely a top 5 receiver right now. He's distanced himself from Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert as the clear and obvious runaway number 1 target for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I mean, think about all the great wide receivers that have ever played this game. He tied the record for the most consecutive games with 125 receiving yards. He's done it in 5 straight games. The reason why A.J. Brown doesn't get that kind of shine, or at least didn't last year, is because it was such a heavy run game. So like the opportunity to accrue like massive stats when it comes to yardage and catches and stuff, especially with how much they spread it around to Devontae and Goddard, wasn't quite there. But play for play, I'm with you. I mean, it's Justin Jefferson, it's Devontae, it's Jamar Chase, it's those guys, but A.J. Brown is absolutely a 1A. Of that, there's no question.
Yeah, I was just sitting here writing down the names. Tyreek Hill. Like, who would we say are the 5 best receivers in football right now? Tyreek Hill has to be one of them.
Gotta be.
Jamar Chase has to be one of them. Jefferson is hurt, but he has to be one of them. Is Devontae Adams still one of them?
He would be if he was playing on a real team. Yeah.
If he had a quarterback and a coach and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, but A.J. Brown's a legitimate like Hall of Fame talent. I mean, I've been watching the Eagles for 25 years. I think he's the best wide receiver we've ever had, and that is inclusive of Terrell Owens in 2004.
You're not old enough to have seen Harold Carmichael.
I'm not old enough to have seen Harold Carmichael, but A.J. Brown's like it's his physicality. Like his ability to run after the catch and break tackles and stuff, that's what makes him so rare. Like not only can he get downfield and win contested catches, but he can break tackles from linebackers and safeties. Like he has the game is so diverse in that respect, so that no matter where on the field Jalen Hurts gets him the football, he maximizes the output.
How tall is A.J. Brown? He's not Harold Carmichael tall, but I mean he's tall. How tall is he?
He is
Harold Carmichael, I think, was like 6'7".
Yeah, Brown's only listed at 6'1".
Okay,
but he's so jacked.
Big.
Yeah, Carmichael's listed at 6'8".
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
a Hall of Famer.
He was huge, yeah. I don't pretend to be anything but a fan, all right? I studied journalism, not football, in school. So I don't pretend to know more than any other football fan knows. But I've been watching the game 50 years, every week of my life for 50 years. I don't know what the Chargers were doing in the first half yesterday. How in the world do you go into a game against the Chiefs and think, the one guy we won't worry about is Kelce? Kelce is open on every play. And when they would diagram it, Tony Romo was like, look, there's nobody here. They're playing 10 to 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. Well, any football analyst I have on, week after week, day after day, game after game, all they say is you got to get your hands on Kelce, you got to get your hands on him, you got to redirect him, you got to do this, you got to do that. They did literally the opposite. They went the George Costanza opposite. Let's see if Kelce can just take us apart. Let's shut down everybody else and see if Kelce alone beats us. And he did. He killed them in the first half. And if they hadn't made whatever adjustment is they made to try and address him, he might have set a record. I've never seen anything look easier than it looked for Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball to Travis Kelce yesterday.
Yeah, so he ran 34 routes yesterday, and the Chargers pressed him once. Of those 34 routes, they gave him at least 5 yards off the line of scrimmage 21 times. So I don't have answers for it either. My assumption here
Isn't the coach of the Chargers supposed to be a defensive genius?
Yeah, he owes Aaron Donald a lot of money.
Oh, my God. His kids are in private school because of Aaron Donald. I mean, talk to me here. How does that guy still have a job?
So
I don't fire anybody on that. I don't like it. I'm not calling for anybody. I just don't understand how anyone watches them play week after week and thinks, oh, yeah, this is the best we can do.
It says to themselves, let's give Travis Kelce the free release off the line of scrimmage.
What are we doing?
So teams now in the NFL, like defensive coordinators, are just obsessed with limiting the big plays, but you can't play that way exclusively. And that's exactly how they played against the best quarterback of all time. I mean, you can play that way against a league average quarterback and maybe get away with it, but Patrick Mahomes is good enough to beat you however he wants. And so if you're going to give a Hall of Fame tight end 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, he's going to go 12 for 179 and a tut. It just is.
The thing about taking away the deep ball, so let me see if I've got this straight. You're telling me they went into that game thinking, no matter what, we cannot let Tyreek Hill beat us over the top. Oh, wait a minute. Tyreek Hill doesn't play for this team anymore. Who are they terrified was going to beat them over the top? Rashee Rice? Mecole Hardman, who actually played
this
for them?
The best way that I can. I mean, it's a conundrum.
There is no
to me
explanation
also.
for it. If you go into a game against that team and your primary thought is not stop Kelce, then you haven't watched any film. I've made myself fairly clear on this. I think the idea that this is against the rules is ludicrous. These are people doing things in plain sight of tens of thousands of people every single week. The idea that these should not be hidden or disguised in such a way that they are not identifiable by anyone just by videotaping them, the difference between just watching them with the naked eye and videotaping them strikes me as ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. That said, obviously, the world doesn't. The entire football world thinks this is real. This is Spygate. This is real. So that the questions are really two that are going to rise here. One, is Michigan going to get whacked? And if they do, will that lead Jim Harbaugh to go to the NFL? The second is, will people who don't like Jim, and we both know there are a lot of them, use this to try to discredit what he has accomplished by saying that what we're hearing about the scope of this investigation dates back basically to the beginning of the time that his team took a huge jump in how well they were competing.